do it? Do I go too far? Do I piss people off? What do I do on this one? So, I'm not going to say we're going to do rewrites of bad games, but games that have the lowest views of Final Fantasy, especially since it's a popular demand. So, we already rewrote Dirge of Service, which really hurt me because I love Dirge of Service as it is. But due to review scores, I had to do it, but then make it better. All we're doing is taking the rough edges and making these games far better. And I also, for 5 years ago, I think I did Final Fantasy 15 Chapter 13, because I think the rest of Final Fantasy 15 was actually pretty decent, you know. Except I think they should add the movie and they should change Chapter 13, but we're talking about that. Now we're talking about Final Fantasy 10. 10-2. This is very hard because, well, you know, it's very hard because I got friends that like that game. Not a bad game, by any means. It's different, for sure. Just like how Dirge of Service was, you know, Devil May Cry, God of War, gun game. This is Final Fantasy meets Barbie. So, I would keep the original spirit where you get different, you know, classes of clothing and stuff like that. But also, what I would do to rewrite some of this game, the game mechanics, I would actually rewrite. You have to also level up and gain experience as well. I mean, you do, but it's going to be a mix and mix. Your outfits won't work or be as potent until that you're a high enough level to use that thing. Just so you have to do both. And I would also change the ending where you don't, in order to get the good ending with Titus coming back, that's gonna be the original ending. That's not gonna be the perfect the whole game ending. That's gonna be the original ending. So if you want to unlock the bad ending, you have to complete 100%. That'll just be an extra thing. We're gonna be pulling the Silent Hill 3 syndrome and Silent Hill 2-3 syndrome, where your decisions, actually, it just be based off your decisions. It wouldn't be if you get it perfect or not. If you choose to do something or not do something, that will affect your ending. But the normal canon ending is Titus comes back. Just because I like that better. No offense, love Final Fantasy, but we got the edgelord, dark, sad, depressing endings. Final Fantasy 15! I guess 7 did because Sephiroth came back, so all the effort was in vain. So, but, okay, I'm done talking about bad endings. The good ending is canon. That's number 1. Another thing I would also rewrite in Final Fantasy X-2 would be, I would put more lore besides just only item descriptions and stuff like that. I mean, it's good to have the various spheres. I think it could probably have a little bit more fleshed out story. You get to go back to the original cast and talk to them, except for Auron and Titus, obviously. But, you know, I'd put some more. In fact, I also would have it so when you have a party member, you know, from the original game, you could switch out one of your girls for Lulu, Waka, and all your favorites, Kimahri. I don't know if anyone's favorite is Kimahri, but if you're a Kimahri fan, I salute you because he doesn't get very much representation. Now back to the thing. I would have it so you could switch out one of your party members, or at least gain an extra party member to make, like, at least the summons, because the summons were too hard. I'm gonna be honest. All the Aeons you had to face from the dark versions of the Aeons were really tough to beat. So I would switch it with it so you could have, you know, Lulu, Waka, or anybody to help you with those bosses if you're in the area, like the Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 syndrome, where you go to Disney Worlds and you have a Disney person on your team. Now, you could go ahead. I'd go as far as that you could switch leaders, so whoever you want to play as, you could play as either the extra party member, or you could switch to Riku or Pain if that's your jam. I'd make it so you can swap out each characters. I'd also put more fleshed out previous spheres for people who have not played Final Fantasy X. Let's just say they got onto 10 too. Maybe get one sphere that explains a little bit of what happened, or something like that. Maybe not a sphere. Maybe the beginning cutscene could probably tell the story of Final Fantasy X so far, where it goes all the way to. Just in case they have not played 10, of course, I think that's going to be impossible now because now you can only buy the Final. It's going to be easier to buy the Final Fantasy X and X-2 HD collection on Switch, Xbox, and PS3. No, sorry, PS3 and PS4, and Xbox One and PS5, and you get the point. You get the HD collection, so there's no way you're not going to play 10 before you play X-2. But just in case that you only own a PS2 and you lived under a rock, I would make it so you'd have what happened before, like a sphere. Maybe the first sphere you get is what happened way before, like after you defeat Yu Yevon and Sin and those final bosses and that ending and Titus disappearing, and then it'll say 3 years later because it is 3 years later afterwards. Now, I do like the spear hunting thing. I'm not, I do not knock that. I think it'd be more impactful for the story if they had it so you could play as or add a party member from the original 10 game, depending if you're on the location or not. But I would say that do that and make it so you have to level up, because when you get to the summons, and once you get to the Dark Aeons, the Dark Aeons, especially Bahamut, I would recommend doing a level. So I'd make some of those sphere quests mandatory. And the other thing too I would change is that even though you beat the first 2 ones, you get to unlock all the rest of the sphere quests. I think you have to do it in the order of the world. I'm not saying that it should be linear like 10, but do the opposite, because it's really the opposite end. You go the opposite end all the way to the beginning of the game, but make it so like you can't go to Xanarkand until you beat this and this. You can't go to this unless you beat that and that. Now, the only thing I would personally scrap out, I would take out all the extra scenes with LeBlanc. I don't think LeBlanc was a good villain. I think she was just, at best, Yuna's rival character, pretty much. Like the Seto Kaiba. She even becomes an anti-hero a little later on. So, what I would do, I wouldn't take her out completely because there's people that still like LeBlanc in her crew, especially I do like the goofiness of this game, especially with those two. I like, because Final Fantasy's always had a serious tone to its stuff, so it's good to have some comedy relief characters. So I do like it, but I would cut it down. I would cut the LeBlanc arc down instead of having 2 or 3 missions. It should just be at least 2 missions, and then after you defeat LeBlanc, LeBlanc realizes that she's wrong and you're better than her, or whatever revelation, and then she later on helps you fight the final boss. I think they should also put more Shuyin doing stuff. He was saved for the last parts of the game. I would have him cause chaos and destruction all over, because then instead of shoehorning him a little later on with the Venegun weapon, I'd have him do bad stuff before the Venegun weapon. Now I see that they're trying to make him as mysterious as they did with Sephiroth in Final Fantasy VII and Kefka in Final Fantasy VI, but I think once you get to 5th or 6th mission of Final Fantasy X-2, I would have it where, you start to see Shuyin stuff. Instead of just that one cutscene in the far plane where Yuna talks to Shuyin thinking he's Titus, and Shuyin's like, look, I did what I did because of my girlfriend. Instead of him putting his, the memory flashback and telling Yuna why he's doing it, I think really Shuyin would have been a much better villain if he just did all this bad stuff. And then after you beat him, then he tells you why he did it and he's sorry. If anything, think about the Naruto Pain arc. Because before, we just thought Pain was just a serial bad guy and a serial terrorist. Until later on, we beat his ass and he submits. He's like, okay, yeah, I did this because you... But you get what I'm saying? I think that's what they should have done with Shuyin. I think Shuyin should have just been a mysterious baddie that looks like Titus. And it would have messed with Yuna even a lot more to see a guy who looks like her dead lover then put the revelation that at the end that Titus was Shuyin, and Shuyin was what Titus really was, and it put ties into that, and that the Titus in that game was supposed to be Shuyin, but that's besides the point. I'd also have references to Jack too. Maybe a flashback scene with Jack, or a sphere of Jack, talking to Shuyin, because if Shuyin's the real Titus, then Shuyin is actually the son of Jack. And maybe Jack is somebody else, because he was a dream too, because that dream's Anarchic. Maybe he was somebody else, and probably have a sphere between that. Because we didn't get to know too much about Shuyin, but I think, like I said, after like 4 missions and Shuyin starts doing bad stuff to every other land, releasing the Dark Aeons and stuff like that, and trying to power Venegun, it should be going all through the stuff, and not just only collect spheres, but like little cutscenes if you finish a mission, like how Kingdom Hearts 1 was, where every time you beat a world, you get the Disney villains gathered up, and they're getting ready to do their evil plan, and it would have been much better. I think, because Final Fantasy X-2 and Final Fantasy X works more better like an anime style Final Fantasy game, because it was really pure anime. It had all the tropes. So it would have been much better to have, the Gold Wings search for more spheres, complete 2 worlds, then Shuyin shows up and does XYZ to the world, messes up the entire world. That way we get to submit he's a bad guy. We have to beat him. There's an urgency to beat him. And then later on, when Shuyin and Venegun gets beat, and then Shuyin, before he dies, he's like, look, I'm sorry for what I've done. This is why I did it. This is, Yevonites were like crazy, crazy zealots, and yeah, they are. I play a spoiler alert. The Yevonites are definitely technically the bad guys if you really think about it, but that's besides the point. The Yevonites was trying to kill Lyn, because I guess Lyn knew something. And that's the thing too. I would also put it where it explains why the Yevonites went after Lyn. Because I wanted to know that. I wanted to know why the Yevonites went after Lyn. Did she know something? Because, it makes sense. Because Yevonites, they're crazy. They're extreme religious zealots. They're like the South will rise again type of thing. But besides the point, besides the jokes. Sorry for the bad jokes, but that's exactly what they are. If you think about it. Except, I'd say more Buddhist-like principles, because they adopt that. But that's the point. They're crazy zealots. They're crazy religious zealots. So they need, But I'd like to know why Lyn was targeted. Like, I'd like a meeting between the Yevonites, or Maester Micah says, so-and-so, or Lyn saw this, or whatever. Put an end to it, and then it showed how bad that Yevon and Maester Micah, because, well, he's technically a puppet, I'm going to be real honest. Anyone who serves Yevon is a puppet. But that's besides the point. I'm just saying, if they could just fill some more story holes, put Shuyin front and center, at least after 5, cut back the LeBlanc arc a little bit, and I think we could probably be good. Change the game system where your party members can happen, if you get Waka or Lulu in one world, but then, once you leave that world, they don't become party members. So I'd have that too. And again, cut back to LeBlanc. Make it so your leveling up skills matter just as much as your dress sphere. And may the crystal be with you.